Listen, I don't know what you're watching right now, but between a new Paddington movie, a new Dog Man movie, and also Lilly Singh's return to YouTube, we have a bunch of stuff to talk about. We got your back, though. The group chat's here. They have takes on this. They are ready to dive in. Let's go. I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and this is Commotion. All right, right now, 2 new children's movies are out in theaters. Yes, we'll get to your favorite Bear in Mind, Paddington, in just a moment. But first, we are going to start here.
Dog Man! This super cop made friends, solves crimes, and even plays piano for the old folks.
Enough about this Dog Man. It's time to stop this super cop.
That is from the trailer of Dog Man. It is a movie based on the comics by Dave Pilkey. Look, the books are incredibly popular. They're incredibly popular in my house, where I have a 7-year-old. Dog Man is a spin-off of Dave's Captain Underpants books. To just give you an idea of like how popular Dave Pilkey's books are, the Captain Underpants and Dog Man books have sold more than like 80 million copies worldwide. Dog Man is now not just a book. It is now a movie. Amil Niazi's here. Teri Hart is here. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Hello. Listen, Teri, I'm going to start with you. You went out to the theater to see Dog Man. For people who don't have a little one in their life anywhere, maybe you want to describe it, because the only way I can describe it is like RoboCop, but for kids. It's like RoboCop, but instead of a robot, it's a dog. But I don't think that's doing the movie justice. So you do a better job, please.
Yeah, okay, so there's a lot going on in Dog Man. So I'm going to try and keep it to like the top 3 storylines. So there's a police officer and his police dog, whose name is Greg, and they are in a terrible accident, and the only way to save them is to put Greg the dog's head on the policeman's body, therefore becoming Dog Man. Dog Man is very great at capturing the bad guys, and so the chief tasks Dog Man with capturing the evilest cat in the world named Petey, and he is voiced by Pete Davidson, quite delightfully actually. And then Petey, the evilest cat in the world, it does a disservice to cats, I have to say, this movie. Petey creates a clone of himself called Little Petey, who's very cute, and he softens, as you do, with one whisker. He only needs one whisker for the cloning. And he softens the evilest cat in the world. And then we, of course, still need a villain for Dog Man to capture, and that comes in the form of a fish named Flippy. And that's when things really get crazy. That's what I got for the plot summary of Dog Man.
Well,
that's
I enjoyed
good, actually.
I know, but I enjoyed about that is like watching you do it and be like, I can't take this seriously, but these are the words that I have to say. But that's in fact the plot of Dog Man. Amil, listen, both of you went to the theaters to watch this with little kids in your life. Amil, what did you think? But also, more importantly, what did the kiddos think?
I mean, you don't want to know what I think, honestly. The thing for me is that, like, I was introduced to this franchise, like most parents, via the books, which, of course, I support and love because it's reading.
We love kids reading. Shout out reading. Yes.
Always, especially independent reading where they get excited and it leads to other books like Wild Robot, which is great. Yeah. But I loathe reading them. It's horrible. You know, my son at first would be like, "You read it," and I was like, "Read what? Like, literally, what is there to read?" And that experience and that face that I just made translated to watching the movie. It's just like very obnoxious, and it's like, you know, being overstimulated. It's like drinking 12 Red Bulls at once or something. But the kids enjoyed it. But what I think is interesting is the marker of like a really good kids movie for me is if they want to rewatch it like over and over and over immediately. Yeah. Not the case. They did not come out being like, can't wait to see this again. It was sort of like, that was fun. We liked the like poop jokes. Yeah. And then, you know, it was sort of like a wash of chaos. And then as soon as the chaos was over, it was like, I'm moving on.
Teri, was that the same experience for you and the little kid you went with?
Yeah, not dissimilar. I took my favorite 8-year-old, and she cooed a lot at little Petey. Oh, he's so cute, because she's 8 and she's a big girl now. And I did not have fun. This is frenetic. Like,
Yeah.
I honestly was like, I don't understand the plot. Like, I don't understand what's happening here. But then I looked at her and looked at all the other kids in the theater who were legitimately having the time of their lives. And I was like, okay, well, maybe that's my enjoyment in this. And I think that in the past, kind of 15, 20 years-ish, Pixar land, there's been a real movement to have co-viewing for kids' movies, that it has to be as entertaining for parents or whoever's watching it with the kids as it is for the kids.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought to myself, you know what? Maybe we've overdone it on that. Maybe it's okay. Maybe it's okay for kids to just, an 8-year-old or a 7-year-old shouldn't laugh at all the same things and shouldn't be affected. Being a child is a very unique experience in your life. And maybe there should be stuff that we don't really get, and it's ridiculous, and it's an assault on my senses, but the enjoyment of the kids is enough, and maybe there should be things that are just squarely for them.
And I think the reason that these books and movies hit so hard with these kids, and why, you see the box office numbers being what they are, is because there really hasn't been anything to take kids from Disney to like some of the young adult fare, like I'm the movie with Katniss Everdeen, whatever those movies are called. Hunger Games. There's no transition, right, between Disney and Hunger Games. And Dave Pilkey saw that sweet spot for 7, 8, 9-year-olds, boys in particular, and completely managed to capitalize on the fact that they want a slightly more nuanced fart joke, but they want those fart jokes, and no one was giving it to them, and that is why these books and movies really, really hit.
I'm more of a nuanced fart joke myself. That's the kind of vibe that I want to bring to the party.
Aren't we all?
Aren't we all? Amil, I want to just extend that point a little bit, because this movie's doing so incredibly well at the box office. Just before we get to Paddington, about just this larger idea of when you see the performance that this movie has had in the box office, and of course the success of the books. Does it surprise you at all? Or is it kind of in keeping with the recurring theme that you bring to the show of parents are simply looking for help? They're looking for a place to take their children so they can enjoy themselves out in the world that isn't just at home. Because I was looking at the other movies for kids at the moment. I was like, oh, we don't have anything. The options are so grim that you go, yeah, sure, Dog Man, let's go. Put the kids into theaters. Why not? Let's do it. Is that what's going on here?
100%. 100. I mean, there is obviously, like you mentioned, 80 million books. The popularity of the books can't be discounted, but it is in conjunction with the fact that there really is nothing for kids of that age bracket, right? We recently took our kids to the younger kid to see Moana 2 and the older kid to see Sonic 3. Yeah. And then as soon as that was done, it was okay, now what? And Dog Man is something all the kids can enjoy, older, younger. It's really group viewing in terms of if you have more than one kid. And I just want people to realize that we want to go to the movies. We're probably one of the last demographics, people with kids, younger kids, eager to go somewhere, especially in the wintertime. Please put out more movies for us. Put out more movies between December and April when there's really nothing to do.
That's real. That's so real.
And I think the popularity of this film has a lot to do with the fact that there just isn't programming for kids these days.
And I will say, I will add to that, yes, reading, but I'm also the big proponent of taking your kids to the movies and having them see things on the big screen in that environment and respect the art form. Yes. And so, yes, we need more of that. We need more of that experience for kids to grow up with and have it become part of their lives.
100%. If folks are just joining us, my name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and this is Commotion. Amil Niazi is here. Teri Hart is here. And we were just talking about the Dog Man movie, and now we're going to shift gears to everyone's favorite marmalade-loving bear. Let's hear it.
A family holiday in Peru.
Peru? Just like that?
I'm on top of the world.
To inflate your life, Jackie.
Hey,
didn't mean now, Paddington.
Okay, so that is a new movie, Paddington in Peru. It is, listen, the first two movies in the Paddington franchise are not just successes. I mean, they're so beloved that, you know, the Rotten Tomato score is like as high as Citizen Kane. Like, they're just so sort of like taken as masterpieces of children's entertainment. Teri, why do people love the Paddington franchise so much, you think?
Well, I am one of those people. I'm a huge, huge fan of this franchise.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, those first two movies they're everything. They have super fun and silly villains. Nicole Kidman and Hugh Grant were in the first one and first two, respectfully. And, you know, Paddington just has this kind of wide-eyed innocence. His shenanigans are fantastic. His hard stare when he doesn't like what people are doing. Oh my God, I'm there for it every time. I fall for it. And I think that, you know, so often in kids' movies, it's all about the message and the life lesson. And what Paddington does so well is it wraps those life lessons up, but the primary story is always some kind of caper or adventure. And I think that that is really, really smart. And it elevates it from it feeling like kind of an after school special to feeling like you're really watching something at the movies that is full of adventure and full of fun and has bad guys and good guys. And I just think they do it really, really well. And he is just so cute. The Ben Whishaw voice of Paddington is one of the best voices I've ever heard in any animated movie from the beginning of time. He's just perfect.
Well, the way that Teri is writing for this Paddington movie, you think it was the greatest thing. It would even surpassed 1 and 2. Emil, where are you at with the third movie?
Well, I just want to say my son, my eldest son, loves Paddington, and when he was like 2 years old, he would do his hard stare because we would read the books. We didn't watch the movie yet, but we'd always be like, "Do your hard stare," and it was just so sweet and funny. Does it live up to the first two? The thing is, Paddington 2, might as well have been Citizen Kane. Okay,
it is a masterpiece. It's genuinely a masterpiece.
How much people loved it, but just it is a perfect movie beginning to end. It has incredible performances, has a fantastic plot. It has heart, but it has drama. You are afraid, but you are enthralled. It's a perfect movie. So to live up to that is asking, honestly, far too much from a third movie. Like, let's remember Godfather 3. Okay, it's hard to do. It's hard to make Godfather 1 and 2. Okay, so that's what we're competing with here. But it is on its own a very good movie. It is not as good as Paddington 2, but nothing can be as good as Paddington 2. It is a great movie that I would take my kid. Speaking of rewatches, we'll probably not rewatch Dog Man, but we will 100% rewatch Paddington 3. I think it's really delightful. So Paddington, as many people will know, he is from deepest, darkest Peru. His family sent him to the UK to escape basically destruction at home. Yeah. He's a refugee. And he's made a pretty nice life for himself with the Brown family, but now his beloved Aunt Lucy is missing, and he needs to go back to Peru with the Browns to find her. But along the way, there's this crazy lost treasure and mystery. It's a really delightful. Again, Teri mentioned capers. That's a pretty big caper. It's sort of like Indiana Jones meets Paddington, and it's really, really lovely and sweet. And I think the whole family can enjoy it. And I know sometimes movies should just be for kids, but if I'm going to shell out $60, $70, it better please me. And it did.
Okay, can I just I want to stay on that point that you just raised about the idea of this movie being set in Peru for a moment, Emil, because I think that is like a valuable thing to talk about. And I'm maybe contextualizing this in the context of this earlier this week, this news story of this like Labour MP in the UK who kind of got made fun of a little bit, but she made headlines because she was like, look, if Paddington Bear were to show up now to the UK, he would not get UK citizenship. Like, Paddington is not divorced from the conversations about refugees and like we mean globally, people arriving by boat. So like specifically that comment was her responding to the UK banning the refugee status for people arriving by small boat. Literally Paddington's origin story. And so there's sort of like something to be said about setting Paddington in London to be in conversation with those tensions. And so to take him out of London and to take him to Peru, do you think he kind of can still sort of contain all of those multitudes that Paddington sort of tries to get at? Or do you think you lose some of that a little bit when you take him out of London?
Listen, I'm a refugee. Elamin, I know you're a refugee.
Yeah.
The story of home lives in the imagination whenever you are a displaced person. Like, I'm tearing up just thinking about what it means to finally, when you've been displaced, go home again, and how powerful that is. And I think if you're going to tell the story of a refugee, to finally make it so that he feels safe enough to go home, I think is so important. And I think it's so important for this political moment, for this cultural moment that we're in right now, where a lot of people don't feel safe and they don't feel like they can go home again. For Paddington to take the Browns to where he's from, I think is so important. And I think it's so important for people to see where he came from, because it humanizes the experience, right? Like, I know he's a bear, so it bearizes the moment. But, it's important for everyone to know where we come from, so that they can understand that we're all the same and all of our stories connect when it comes to the idea of home. And so I don't think that it's
it doesn't lose
apolitical
potency.
for him to go home to Peru. In fact, I think it's the opposite.
I could talk about Paddington truly for forever. So I gotta stop and leave it there. But that was a really lovely and touching response. Also, really lovely conversation with both of you. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. Teri Hart is an entertainment reporter at Super Channel, and Amil Niazi is a culture critic and writer for The Cut. Both Dog Man and Paddington in Peru are out in theaters right now. I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud, and this is Commotion. Look, one of the beautiful things that YouTube gave us in the early 2010s was a batch of fresh voices to follow and get to know. And one of the biggest ones out of Canada was this one.
What up, everyone? It's your girl, Superwoman. So for months and months, you lovelies have been requesting me to do this video, and I've decided today to finally stop being a jerk face and give it to you. Happy birthday! Maybe you don't care about the content of this video at all because you're watching it on silent because you dirty. Either way, get ready to relate because I'm about to break down the types of parents. Let's get to it.
Honestly, just felt like 2012 listening to that. That is Lilly Singh. She's, of course, a comedian and entertainer. She came out strong at the gate and racked up millions of views. She got big on YouTube. She made videos with celebrities like Priyanka Chopra and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And then she got so big, in fact, that she broke barriers when she got a late-night talk show on NBC. Well, Lilly has now returned to YouTube, but she's promising something of a different kind of content, more authentic vlogs about her life and what it's like. Her new show is called Shameless, and she interviews some of India's biggest and brightest stars. Here to talk about the return of Lilly Singh is Jeevan Sangha. Jeevan, welcome back to the show, friend.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. Listen, you have a bit of history with Lilly. Do you want to talk a little bit about like how old you were when you first started watching her videos?
Yeah, so I was like 11 or 12, like peak tween years on YouTube, watching Lilly Singh. And I like was a big fan, as well as like a lot of my friends. She was so big. She was not just someone who was speaking about the Punjabi immigrant experience in Canada, which wasn't really accessible through mainstream media at the time. But she was telling it from the perspective of being like a young woman. And even though I was a tween, I was looking for people in the world, especially outside of the beauty space. Like there were some South Asian creators in the beauty space, but she was doing like sketch and comedy. And so it was cool to see someone who was like wore bold colors and loved superheroes and was making like really funny and like bold, and like now we look back and kind of cringe, but it was just like so the moment. So it was cool to see as a young kid. I
mean, like you're obviously not the only one. Like she has 14 million subscribers, billions of views racked up on her videos. What do you think it is about Lilly Singh's content that makes people connect to it?
I think it's just so bold. I think like you can't, I mean, I was kind of referencing this in the last question, but you can't get famous on YouTube in that era without like conquering Cringe Mountain. Like you just are who you are, and you've accepted that it might be kind of out there.
Yeah,
you got to be cringe and free, and I respect that so much. And she had a couple formulas that really worked. Like she had this kind of series of like dressing up as her parents and reacting to things. And she had like the rant behind like a Pinterest wall of posters and talking about like annoying types of this, or, oh, isn't it funny when that happens? It's very like observational, but it's funny and it's relatable, and she commits to the bit. And that's something that I really respect about her.
Okay, so then she manages to take all this online success into the real world. She wrote a New York Times bestseller. She becomes the first person of Indian descent to host an American late-night talk show. Spoiler alert, it didn't last. She pointed out in her TED Talk that she wasn't exactly set up for success. Take a listen to this.
To say the budget was small, the writing staff even smaller, and to do the first season, I had to shoot 96 episodes of late-night television in 3 months. Words cannot explain to you how exhausting, emotionally and spiritually challenging that was.
So she does the show a little late with Lilly Singh, but then she talks later about how she just was not set up for success in any kind of way. How did the show compare to like the stuff that she was doing on YouTube at the time?
I think that one of the things, I mean, so many people were rooting for that show, myself included.
Yeah.
It felt so big. It was so exciting. And we wanted it to work. I wanted it to work. And I think the cards were really stacked against her in a lot of ways that she explains. And unfortunately, I think what I wanted from a late night show from Lilly Singh was to see her grow kind of out of her YouTube persona a little bit more.
Yeah.
And instead, what I saw was more of that YouTube persona and the I Superwoman I sort of elements being brought into late night. And her slot was 1:30 a.m., if I'm remembering correctly.
That's rough.
Which is
That's a
pretty
rough
late.
slot. Yeah.
It's a rough slot. There was a lot that she was up against, and she had a shrunk writer's room. She was overproducing without the resources. So I do cut her a lot of slack, but I think that whether that was, it just didn't quite feel like the version of her at the age that she was. And since her audience was tweens and teens before, I think things needed to shift. And I think that feeling of internal conflict and that inauthenticity was likely reflective of what was going on behind the scenes.
The reason I bring that up is because I'm sort of interested in this trajectory of people who try to leave YouTube, to try to like do something else outside of it. Basically seeing YouTube as like a training ground, and then, trying to sort of do something that's a bit more traditional media. And I'm thinking if you're like, someone like Jess Rain, for example. Jess Rain left YouTube for very good reasons that sort of had to do with like mental health and being like, I don't really need to be exposed to all of this around me all the time. But he does a scripted show. He does a scripted show because that seems to sort of fit a little bit more with the persona that he's trying to do. Lilly Singh leaves YouTube to do a late night talk show. Okay, that's interesting. Go develop that what that looks like. But now she's coming back to YouTube. So she's sort of returning to this terrain that sort of made her famous in the first place. What do you think she's trying to do with the show? What do you think that tells you about like her relationship to what this audience is asking of her, you think?
Yeah, I think that she knows that A Little Late wasn't doing what she wanted it to do. And I think she knows she wasn't being fully herself. And I think that this return back to YouTube is one, her connecting with the people who brought her there, which I think when she was out in her other ventures, she was trying to connect with new people, but not necessarily with the audience that's grown up with her and that's invested in her voice already. So I think she's trying to like tap back into that market for sure. But her new show, like, I also think it's an opportunity for her to go back to interviewing and like in a way that she has more creative agency. Like I think she was doing an interview element on A Little Late, but it was really limited, as you know, because it was kind of variety-ish, the way that she ran her late night show. So I think this is an opportunity for her to bring something, like have more ease in the way that she interviews. Like you mentioned, like it's with some of India's biggest celebrities. And you can see that from the first episode. She does feel more comfortable. Even though there is an element of it feeling kind of like PR vetted and like it's supposed to be like personal, unfiltered conversations. You can tell it's like a little, maybe not super unfiltered.
Yeah.
But you can tell that she's like kind of exhaling, which is nice to see.
I'm all game for that. I'm all game for Lilly Singh sort of getting to spread her wings a little bit more, especially after how constrained she felt on A Little Late. So I'm curious to see where this goes. In the meantime, Jeevan, we got to leave it there, but I really appreciate your time, friend. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Yes, of course. Jeevan Sangha is a freelance culture writer and editor at Shadow Magazine. She was in Surrey, BC. And also, you can catch Lilly Singh's new series, Shameless, on her YouTube channel at Lilly Singh. That is it for the show today. My name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud. Remember, you can find the show anytime you like, wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us on YouTube as well. Also, we're on Instagram. Could you just follow us on Instagram already? We are at Commotion CBC. We will see you tomorrow.